The New York Giants fall 38-7 to the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2022 NFL Divisional Playoffs. Up next, I'll tell you what happened and what New York needs to do to get over the hump. Stay tuned. What's up, Giants fans? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tommy's Takes. As always, I'm your host, Tommy G. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Please hit that subscribe button. You could also check me out on Twitter at TommyG105. Of course, check out my Giants Country team. Talented bunch of content creators. Done an amazing job all season. And this is it. The final game review of the year. And it's not a good one. As most of you know by now, the Giants go into Lincoln Financial Field and get absolutely pounded 38-7 in the NFC's divisional playoff game. So much at stake, with a chance to punch a ticket to the NFC Championship. But what you had here was a classic case of a team that played above their means, above their skill set, above their level, and got themselves into a game they couldn't get themselves out of. But don't hang your head. No reason to be embarrassed. No reason to be ashamed. Could there have been better efforts? Sure. Could this have been a better coached game? Absolutely. Could Daniel Jones and everyone on the offense have played a little bit better? Could Xavier McKinney, Dexter Lawrence on defense played a little bit better? Absolutely. But don't hang your head for this season. Giants got to the playoffs, won a difficult playoff game in Minnesota. Several career years by players on this Giants team. Well-coached team for the first time in what feels like a decade. And their first playoff wins in Super Bowl 46. So this is not a time to hang your head. You're going to feel sad. You're going to feel down, frustrated, not understand why it wasn't a competitive game. We'll break that down a little bit further. But at the end of the day, this Giants team represented for the city of New York, New Jersey, for their fan base. They won 10 games this season, and which was really, if you want to think about it, year zero in the rebuild. So this was a remarkable performance. Giants had never lost 3 games to an opponent in a season since their inauguration in 1925. Unfortunately, this one was not pretty. From the third play of the game, a deep bomb to Devonta Smith, until the final whistle. Giants were outclassed, outplayed, outcoached, and the improbable dream and the magical run ended. And it's sad to see it end. It came to a crash and halt, and it was evidenced right from the start, right from that Devonta Smith play. Eagles go right down the field. They go up 7-0. Giants put a good drive together. They push the ball down. Unfortunately, Jones stumbles, trips over his own guy's foot, and they're faced with a 4th and long on Philly's 40-yard line. So you could either kick a 47-yard field goal or try to net a 20-yard punt and try to pin them back. And Brian Daboll went for it. And I know people are upset, but listen, this is how Daboll has coached his team since week 1 in Tennessee, going for 4th downs, going for 2. He's been an aggressive coach. That's what he's been. That's what he'll always be. And when you really look at how he's coached his team, that's why they're where they're at. It gave them that edge. When you have a less talented team, you need to go for it. You need to be aggressive. Some people will say you don't do that against Philly. That's not the spot you do it. Well, your defense wasn't stopping them the entire night anyways. Yes, that was early in the game, but they already drove right down the field with zero resistance. I thought it was the right call. Listen, you could second guess it till the cows come home. It didn't work, so you're going to be second guessed. I thought it was the right call. I thought the Giants needed to be aggressive in that game. Farly superiorly outmatched by Philly. You needed to be aggressive. You needed to go for that. The execution wasn't there, plain and simple. Execution was not there. But Daboll has played a similar situation the same way all year long. This time didn't work. Eagles take over the ball, promptly make it 14-0 on their way to 28-0 at the half. And it was a brutal half. There was pretty much nothing to be excited about except for that drive that ended in a turnover on downs. I believe the first 5 drives for the Giants were turnover on downs, interception, and 3 straight 3-and-outs. Really brutal offensive performance. And at the half, you're saying, okay, Giants get the ball to start the half. Maybe they could score quickly. Maybe they can get something together. Would not be. As the Giants go 3-and-out to start the second half drive, running game was non-existent. Red-hot signal caller Daniel Jones, he was 6 of 10 in the first half for 57 yards with an interception. So he did not look good in this game, Daniel Jones. I'll talk about him separately towards the end of the video, but he did not look good. He missed receivers in his game, constantly under duress. I think he was pressured like 64% of his dropbacks, but just did not look like himself. And can you really blame him? The Philadelphia Eagles not only have the number one pass D, they have the number one pass rush in the NFL and a historic pass rush. It's not just number one. They edged out the second team close to them. This was a historic pass rush that almost broke the NFL record for sacks. So Daniel Jones was running into a buzzsaw on Saturday night, one way or another. Would you have liked him to miss less receivers? I thought he missed a handful of receivers. He missed one of Slayton down the left sideline that he could have hit. But also Richie James drops a wide open 77-yard touchdown. How would that impact Daniel Jones' stats? How much better would his stat line look? So I think it goes both ways. Barkley really was the only one on offense that looked like he was locked in. But the second half was more of the same. Outside of the Barkley, in the third quarter, Barkley has a 40-yard run. Was a really nice run. It was a pull and was out of the shotgun formation. It was a shotgun draw. Barkley takes it 40 yards. Looked like he was going to break it out. Giants would end up scoring on that drive, settling for a Matt Breida 8-yard touchdown run out of the Wildcat. Getting a Matt Breida 8-yard touchdown run out of the Wildcat. And that would be it. That would be all the scoring for the Giants in this game. Next drive, Eagles get the ball. They start driving. McKinney in Giants territory comes off a corner blitz, strip sacks Jalen Hurts, fumble. Giants don't recover. That was really the last chance the Giants had to come back in this game. That was really it. After that, the Eagles just ran the ball. It was embarrassing how the Eagles ran the ball on this Giants defense all night long. And it looked like at the end of that game, they were just running some of their plays. They were just practicing for the next game. That's what it really looked like. And it was embarrassing. And, whether you're a Giants fan, content creator, part of the team, front office, it's not how you want it to go out. Also, at the end of that game, Dable decides to punt it on 4th and long in the fourth quarter late, which, to me, that's an issue. If you're going to play it one way, play it both ways. If you're going to go for it in the first quarter, go for it in the fourth quarter. Especially that Eagles team was running over, around, and through your defense. I would have never gave them the ball back there willingly. That was it. That was the waving of the white flag. I don't think Dable meant to wave the white flag there, but that's essentially what it did. Eagles just ran right back down the field for another touchdown. They added another late score to make it 38-7. It was just a brutal game, flat out. Offensively, Eagles had an answer for everything. They weren't fooled on RPOs, weren't fooled on the zone runs, weren't fooled on the Giants' short passing game. Bradbury got himself an interception sitting on that short passing game, sitting on routes. They didn't have time to even set up and take advantage of double moves, unfortunately, and it was just not to be. And Jones shut down. Barkley, outside of the big run, shut down. Barkley did have a nice catch and run where he ran over Gardner Johnson, which was nice to see in a game where Giants unfortunately didn't show a lot of fight. Offensive line was overwhelmed again. Offensive line struggled in every single game versus this Eagles team. Just brutal. And you got to feel for Daniel Jones because even though he didn't play well, he was under siege. It was tough to watch because Jones has played so well over the last month, and the offensive line has played much better. 5 sacks allowed by the Giants. 7 sacks allowed in the Week 14 game. You're not going to win like that. First, you're not going to win if you don't score points, and you're not going to score points if you can't protect your quarterback. That's first and foremost. I think that made Jones a little bit skittish. And I think also the moment was a really big moment for everybody involved. Let's not forget Jones had just played his first career playoff game a week before. Now he's at the Link in front of that Philly crowd, raging, roaring, and it just wasn't meant to be. Just did not look like himself. Missed on several medium range passes. Missed on, like I said, the deep one to Slayton. Had the interception. Wide receivers were locked down the entire night. There was nothing there. Other than that one Slayton pass that was underthrown, I didn't see anything else really open. And if it did get open, it was too late. Hassan Reddick terrorizing Evan Neal. Evan Neal had a brutal game once again. I think the offseason couldn't come at a better time for Evan Neal. I am a little bit concerned for him, and I know everybody wants to say he's a rookie, everything will be okay. He was just like Andrew Thomas. In Andrew Thomas, many forget, started to ascend towards the end of that season with a terrible offense around him. And yeah, statistically, what they gave up sacks-wise is similar, but Thomas was already ascending. I worry about Evan Neal, and he's a rookie, and I'm nowhere near giving up on him. He's immensely talented. He's a mammoth of a man. But again, that was a brutal performance, especially to start the game. He was getting beat like a drum on those first couple drives and really hurt the Giants, especially on right before that controversial fourth down call. Jones goes to scramble on third down, has a wide open lane, but he trips over Thomas because Neal's pushing his guy into him. It was ugly. And, I still have a lot of hope for Neal. I don't know if maybe a move to guard is in his future. A lot of technique issues. We'll get into that. We got a long offseason ahead, guys and gals. We got a long offseason. So we'll get into all that during the offseason, his technique, where he needs to be, where he was before the injury when he was playing better. But not a good showing. Not a good showing at all. And one of the most telling stats, Daniel Jones hits Matt Breida for 19 yards with 1 minute left in the first quarter. Giants did not get another offensive first down till 10 minutes in the third quarter. So they went an entire quarter and a half without an offensive first down. Absolutely brutal. And like I said, those first 6 drives, 5 drives, whatever it was, turnover on downs, pick 6, and 3 3-and-outs. It was actually 4 3-and-outs. So the first 6 Giants drives, turnover on downs, interception, 3-and-out, 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 3-and-out. Unbelievable. That's not how you start a playoff game. That's how you get blown out of a building. And that's exactly what happened to this offense. Richie James drops a wide open 77-yard touchdown right in his hands. I don't think that would have affected the outcome of the game, honestly. But still, it just added to the misery of the night. Wide open. Rushing attack wasn't there. Eagles were getting in their gaps, staying disciplined. They weren't falling for any play action. If you would dream up a nightmare scenario for a game, this was it. This was it. It was just a smoke fest. But like I said, before we get into the defensive performance, which was a whole nother story, like I said, this is not something to be embarrassed about. Do you want to go out and lose to your divisional rival for a third time in the season with the NFC Championship on the line? Of course not. Nobody wants to do that. But this is a season, the Giants shouldn't even have been in that game. They had no business even being there. This team came into the season with a thin roster. They cut their best linebacker right before the season started, knowing they have one of the worst linebacking cores already, even with Blake Martinez, due to salary cap restrictions. They trade the troubled but talented second-year receiver Kadarius Toney at midseason when they need receivers. They stay put at the trade deadline. They stay patient. They lost Wan'Dale Robinson for the season, wide receiver. They lost Sterling Shepard for the season, wide receiver. They paid Kenny Golladay $72 million. Did nothing this season. Once again, his career as a Giant is over. And his Giants team still got it done. They still got to the playoffs. They lost their 2 best defensive backs for a large chunk of that second half, and Xavier McKinney and Adoree Jackson. Tremendous amount of injuries, losing rookies in Marcus McKeithen, Darius Beavers, Joshua Ezeudu. The list goes on and on. Even Wan'Dale was a rookie. The list goes on and on and on and on. You lost Colin Johnson in camp. This Giants team could have looked a lot different Saturday night in Philly if not for those injuries. But they fought. The coaching staff did a great job. General Manager Joe Schoen did a great job. Picked up several players during the season to plug holes of injuries. Players like Jalen Smith, Fabian Moreau, Marcus Johnson, Isaiah Hodgins, Landon Collins, Gerard Davis. But you can't sit there and say that these are players that are going to be starters. That these are players that are going to beat a team like the Eagles, who are starting an A.J. Brown, a Devonta Smith. First rounders, dominant players, talented players. So Joe Schoen did a great job keeping this thing afloat, keeping his ship from sinking. The coaching staff did a great job getting that talent in, getting them acclimated. But it wasn't enough. That talent to win NFC, divisional playoffs, win championships, Super Bowls. You're not finding that talent on the waiver wire mid-season. Just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And it didn't work that way for the Giants. And it's unfortunate because when you do get to this point in the season, You've worked so hard. You've invested so much, as players, coaches, front office, the whole organization. It's tough no matter what. Anytime an NFL season ends without a Super Bowl championship, it's an empty, sinking feeling, especially when the game is a blowout and was never competitive. There was never a point in this game where Giants fans could get excited, get pumped up, throw their hands up, cheer. Like I said, you had the one touchdown, but it came later, and that was it. But like I said, anyways, stay focused on the plan at hand if you're Joe Shane. You got a lot of questions coming in the offseason, a lot of Giant free agents: Barkley, Shepard, Jones, Nick Gates, Feliciano, Justin Ellis, Nick Williams, Breida, Ward, Jefferson, Gillian, Richie James, Fabian Moreau, Marcus Johnson, Zimenez, Julian Love, and Darius Slayton. Got a ton of free agents, so there's a ton of heavy lifting to do. You're going to have to make some changes. This offense needs to have more firepower. And who knows what happens with your two key players, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Jones comes out after the game and says basically, I want to be here. This is where I want to be, but I understand it's a business. Barkley kind of said something opposite. He's like, I'm not willing. I don't need to reset the market. I don't need a mega deal. I want to stay here. I want to be here with the Giants. So kind of like two different, perspectives from Jones and Barkley. I think it's a good chance they'll both be back. Like I said, we have a long off season to talk about all that. Let's get back to the game real quick. The defense couldn't stop the run. 268 yards rushing. Pushed around. No physicality at the point of attack. No pressures. They had one sack, and it was Xavier McKinney off the edge. Eagles were 10 of 14 on third down. Just a poor performance. And, as much as the defense lacks talent, I was the strength of this team. The defense was the strength of this team. You have all first-rounders on a defensive line. You have Xavier McKinney, who was basically a first-rounder. You have Julian Love, who the team thinks highly of. You have Adoree Jackson, who was a number one corner. To me, that was unacceptable. To put up an effort like that, especially late in that game where the Giants scored, they were trying to get it back, and the Eagles just ran it right up the gut. Kenneth Gainwell, who's not their starter, wasn't even their second option in this game, finished with 100 yards rushing, 114. Boston effing Scott gets his usual touchdown versus the Giants. Whatever Wink's game plan was, I didn't look at the film yet. Played a lot of off coverage. Didn't work, and they didn't adjust. Eagles came right out in the second half and did what they wanted. Jalen Hurts didn't look like himself. Still dominated the Giants. Still got the clutch first downs when he needed. When nothing was open, scrambled for first downs. The pressure from the Giants, like I said, was non-existent. Dexter Lawrence was in jail basically all night by Jason Kelce, who is a great center. That was a great battle. Kelce, I think, has won that battle twice. Dexter will win that battle soon, probably next year, but didn't help on Saturday night. Kayvon Thibodeau, not much there. Getting held. He had the one TV clip where he says, I'm getting effing held, and it picked up on the mics. But really, that was it. There was no playmakers for the Giants. I thought Adoree did a solid job in coverage for the most part, and they were just pushed around. Plain and simple. This Eagles team pushed the Giants around, and when you go in the offseason, you never want to build your team to beat another team. You want to build your team in your image, how you want that team, by your offensive, defensive philosophy. But this Eagles team is a problem. They're strong, and they're built from the bottom up. And yeah, they can't keep everybody. They're going to have to let some people go. But they have their core there, and it's scary, man. And Giants struggle in the division this season, right? 1-5-1. Not good. That's not going to cut it most years. The fact that the Giants made it to the playoffs at 1-5-1 in the division is remarkable. Just a testament to how they played outside of the division, specifically against the AFC South. But not going to happen most of the time. Really not going to happen. Just to recap, I want to talk about Daniel Jones. Before I get into that, though, I did want to say thank you to everybody. This was the first season of Tommy's Takes. This is the last game review, and I just wanted to thank everyone. We're creeping up towards 600 subscribers. My first year doing content for the Giants. You guys have been awesome. Little by little, the show has picked up steam. We plan to be back next year. Obviously we'd love to make some improvements, some changes here and there, but I just want to thank you guys and gals, all the support, the likes, the comments, everybody on Twitter that's a supporter of mine. This fan base is absolutely amazing. The last month was terrific. The last week or two was electric. There's no fan base like this fan base, and I appreciate you guys and gals for kind of taking me in, allowing me to bring you content. It's really meant the world to me, and the show means the world to me, and you guys and gals mean the world to me. Again, there's no stronger, bigger, better fan base than the New York Giant fan base. That's just flat out. So I wanted to talk a little bit. We're not going to get too much into the future here, but just a little quick high-level overview of what could happen in the offseason. We'll go needs. We'll start with needs. It was evidenced last night. The linebackers on this Giants team are not starting NFL linebackers. I'm sorry. They got pushed around in that Week 14 game. The defensive line had a hard time keeping them clean in that game. This game was more just pushed around. Jalen Smith, Gerard Davis, Landon Collins curiously didn't play. I'm not sure why. I thought he would have been a good fit in this game. Just got pushed around, just got demolished. The pulling guards have caused hell for these linebackers all season. They can't get around. They can't get off of them. Eagles receivers were blocking up Giants linebackers in that game. It was just not a good performance. I would put linebacker core right at the top of the needs. I really would. I would kind of do 1A, 1B with linebacker core and wide receiver. Again, last night you didn't see a lot of separation from receivers. It's been an amazing story for this receiving core. I do want to give them credit. You got Hodgins, James, Slayton leading the way, all late-round picks, all worked their tails off this year, did a good job, came up big, taking nothing away from them. This team needs an explosive, true, game-defining number one receiver. They don't need to go out and spend a lot of money, trade a lot of capital. Find that guy in the draft, identify who it is. Maybe you go get yourself a bigger receiver. Daniel Jones has never really had that type of a target. Maybe that helps him. But you seen on full display last night, the receivers could not get open, could not get to the ball even when it was thrown to them. They were smothered. The linebacking core could not stop the run, kept getting caught up in the wash. I would put those two up there. Then I would do interior offensive line. Eagles manhandled this offensive line 3 games this year. That just can't happen. I mean, and you want Daniel Jones to progress, and he's going into his 5th year. That can't happen. You can't have a quarterback that's on the run all game. It's just not a feasible offensive plan. If Azudu's going to start at left guard, fine. I don't know what you do with Nick Gates. Nick Gates has had an amazing story. Much love to Nick Gates. I don't think he comes back, in all honesty. Feliciano, I don't think he comes back. Glowinski, I'm not sure what the team does. I think you need a massive overhaul there at interior offensive line. You have your tackles, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, whatever you want to do. Neal can turn it around at right tackle so you could have your 2 stalwarts, because Neal was a huge problem this year. He was a huge problem in both Eagles blowout losses. So I think that would be the third, I would say, need. Maybe you look for secondary help. I don't know if you bring Julian Love back. At this point, I'm whatever on it, 50-50. If they want to bring him back, has to be a good deal. I wouldn't throw a ton of money at him. He's a solid player. He's not a good or great player. Struggled last night mightily. Struggled down the stretch, really, the last few games. I wouldn't really bring him back unless it's for a very fair market deal. So I'll probably look for someone in the secondary. And really, I don't know, maybe more edge help. I don't know. We'll get into all that. I don't want to get too far ahead. It's hard not to when you lose a game like that and you're trying to pinpoint what happened, what caused the loss. Was it this guy's fault? You always try to jump to assess what happened, how did it happen, how could you fix it. Let's jump on this. But plenty of time left. We got free agency coming up. You got the draft coming up, obviously, in a few months. You just kind of take a deep breath. I think a lot of Giants fans should reflect on this season. Phenomenal season, right? From the first game in Tennessee, going for 2, Barkley burrowing in there. You had the big wins against Baltimore. You went to London. You beat Green Bay, right, in a comeback game. You beat Washington, prime time, right? You slayed that demon to help your playoff chances. Great game versus Minnesota in the regular season. You go toe-to-toe. Indy comes in. You totally wipe them out. in a much-needed blowout. That offense needed that blowout. You go into Minnesota, wild card matchup, insane environment. You take care of business there. So I think all Giants fans should end this season with a smile. Again, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be embarrassed of. This is the makings of a great team. You have your quarterback. Maybe there's some questions around how he played against the elite teams. Only way to tell is to bring him back. I think his deal will be a lot more fair than people think. You have your young offensive line in left tackle, right tackle, and possibly Azudu at left guard. You have your edge rushers in Aziz, who needs to stay healthy, Kayvon Thibodeau. You have pieces here. You have a GM that did a phenomenal job with limited resources. You have a head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator that had a really good year. They're obviously going to have some interviews, but do not hold your head down. Keep your head high. The New York Giants, in year one of a rebuild, got to the playoffs for the first time in 6 years, won a playoff game for the first time since Super Bowl 46, and that's all you could ask for. You can't really ask too much more of a team, especially in year one of a rebuild, right? Go back to training camp, the blue-white scrimmage, and everybody's saying, I don't know if this team could even win 3-4 games, and, Daniel Jones is terrible, and he's going to be gone. Barkley can't stay healthy. Well, Barkley stayed healthy the whole season, had an amazing season. Jones improved in every single metric across the board, got the team into the playoffs, got his first career playoff win, and the Giants did it with pride. And that's what you need to have, Giants pride, and that's what they had. So don't hang your head. This was a tough loss against a superior team, much more talented team, but the Giants went in, they fought, it just wasn't to be. And sometimes that villain story, right, has a start like that. And, it's funny when watching after the game and, you see Daniel Jones walk into the locker room and still has his helmet on, never took his helmet on, and you could see it's weighing heavy on him. So if I'm a Giants fan, I'm looking forward to the 2023 season. Go out there and get a wide receiver. Fix the interior O-line. Go get some linebackers that could chase the ball, get to their spot, right? And this is only up from here. You had a first-year head coach in position, first-year offensive coordinator in position, first year for Jones in this offense. You won 10 games, including a playoff game. Absolutely nothing to hold your head about. Nothing. This was a successful season. Questions are always going to come in the offseason, but there were a ton of teams that didn't get this far. A ton of teams didn't make the playoffs. Pretty good teams, too. A couple good teams didn't win their wild card game. So the Giants put up a progressive season here, and something Giants fans should be proud of. Again, to this fan base, don't hold on to this loss for too long. It's over. The Giants have had some tough playoff losses, right? Go back to the Super Bowl in 2000, collapse to the Niners, to the Vikings. It's going to happen, especially when you have a team that's not ready for prime time yet, so to speak. But this team will be ready soon, and it will be the Giants' time. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's the year after. But if they continue to build on what they did this year, sky's the limit. That's it for today's show. Again, thank you, everybody. Concluding Tommy's takes as far as, season reviews, previews. You guys and gals have been amazing. Best fan base in all of sports. Hit that subscribe button. It means the world to me. Check me out on Twitter, TommyG105. And to everybody out there, peace.